Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're at, ladies and gents. I am Kuura Isagami, your resident tinkerer and meta rodder, and this is the Metarots News Network. And thanks so much for tuning in with me once again as we set up yet another collaborative Orimeda art stream here on the MNN. These have so far been a very large success on my channel, with having lots of wonderful guest hosts of all kinds of backgrounds on the MNN from all their corners of the internet as well. Great conversations, great vibes, lots of very creative stuff that we've come up with together, and I most certainly don't plan to slow those down anytime soon. As obvious that I have several more lined up after this one, so it's going to be a very busy weekend for your boy Kuura here. But I do appreciate everyone for stopping in and hanging out with me and my wonderful guest for a while. That being said, I am going to go ahead and officially introduce them into the chat here as I'm setting everything up. Mint, my dear friend, and the first time ever here on the MNN, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How about you?
Not too bad. Thank you so much for tuning in. Just take a minute, because kind of my usual pattern here to kind of introduce everyone and set the vibe. Go ahead and take a bit, talk about yourself, who you are, what you do, any kind of self plugs that you want to bring in, stuff that you stake as your claim to fame. This is the spotlight's all on you.
Okay. Hey, everyone out there. This is Mint. I'm an artist. I've been gaming for ages. I taught myself how to read so I could read video game instruction manuals. I'm a variety streamer. I love really challenging games and PvP. And yeah, I think that's probably about it.
So variety
I
streamer
don't know
though,
if I have.
that usually means you handle just a little bit of here, there, and everywhere. Are there any genres or any titles specifically that that you claim as a very cherished one more than others?
Uh, well, on the subject of the challenging thing, since PvP can be kind of a mixed bag, I'm a big
Oh
fan of the
yes.
Souls-like genre,
I've
just because those are consistently fun.
I've heard a lot of things about the about the Souls like, and that's definitely a very
Mhm.
either hit or miss on either. You find one that's a real vibe and that that you mesh with, or you have one that just literally hates you from day one and you won't get any progress done.
Yeah, uh, compared to a lot of games and things like that, the reason I like them is that they're hard but fair, at least if they're made well.
That's
Uh,
that's that's a fair assessment.
yeah, so being able to take on a challenge that is consistent and stays true to its own rules is a lot of fun to take
Gotcha.
on.
Gotcha. That's definitely a very fair assessment of the Souls like, and I've seen a lot of people play that. I've seen other friends of mine play it in voice chats and such, and definitely a lot of different flavors for every kind of Souls like that you're looking for, and based on different kind of genres and themes. So lots of potential there as well. Are there any Souls like specifically that you enjoy more than others, or just a little bit of everything?
Honestly, just a little bit of everything. I've made it a good ways through 2 out of the 3 original Dark Souls games. I haven't finished 3 yet. There was some sort of technical issue on Steam.
Gotcha.
I've fallen way behind on Elden Ring compared to everyone else, but I'm planning on getting back to that. So,
Gotcha. Yeah, I hear the new Night Rain with it's definitely been giving people a run for their money. So I imagine that's going to be a fun time. I've been seeing all the
yeah.
memes now. I've been seeing all the memes floating around now. So I imagine people are definitely getting their enjoyment out of it.
Oh yeah, I've been hearing a couple horror stories here and there. Usually good things with the way people are about that. But
Yeah, but see, isn't that the Souls-like in genre, genre in general,
yeah, that's part of the fun.
exactly, exactly. But that definitely sounds like a lot of very exciting stuff in particular. So it's great to hear just a little bit about what makes you special, Mint, and over on your channel. Anything specific you want to plug in that you have incoming and that you're thinking about, or nothing really down the pike that's in development at the moment?
Oh gosh, I've honestly been on a bit of a hiatus for a while. I was kind of pulling myself out of that the past week or so, getting ready for this. I don't have any big projects or anything lined up, but just regular streaming and vibes, I guess, for
Okay.
the foreseeable future.
Okay. Well, that's always exciting as well to kind of play things by the book and play things by ear. So it's always nice to have that and keep that variety going. Unfortunately, I'm someone who plays very strictly by a set order and a pattern, and if I don't follow a certain kind of operation, then the whole thing feels scuffed to me, and I can't get it done. So it's an on and off where I just have to be over prepared for everything. So I definitely have a great big respect for variety streamers that do just a little bit of everything and don't really have that problem.
Honestly, I kind of feel I'm on the other side of that. I really respect people that are able to just create a like rigid schedule like that and routinely stick to it. I feel like it's a good way to be really productive, and you're less likely to slip into a random hiatus like I am.
That's fair, but I mean, there's pros and cons to both ultimately, and that's honestly what makes the content creation game fun. Is there's no wrong way to do it,
Yeah.
which is always great. But with that being said, let me go ahead and fire up my playlist here for my stream side. I did send you the link to that, by the way, if you want to listen in on your own or just kind of let it play in the background on your end. Usual rules will apply as well, so if it's too loud, too soft, if you can't hear me or Mint, just let us know in the chat, and I will modify that post haste. Let's go ahead and fire this up here and just kind of play around with it. Everything's looking pretty good so far. All right, so standard rules apply. Prior to stream time, I did give Mint a special assignment in preparation for this stream, where I had them play with the random Metarock kit generator and come up with some unique results that are unique to what they came up with and thought would work really well together. And then we're going to be going over all four of those prompts that you brought forward, and we're going to decide on one prompt that we're going to further refine into a final result and really have some fun with it. So far I've had good success with all of these. With my first one, we did two at the same time and kind of ran long, so I want to try to be mindful of that, so I'm not keeping here until like midnight or something on their end. So, and honestly, being able to focus specifically on like one design specifically is nice too, as this does mean we can actually take time to properly develop it without having to rush putting one or two together in consecutive. So, with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and start off here and write those down. All right, so let me test this here. So, option 1. So the first one that you brought to the table, shrink this down a little. Oh. Alright, so option 1 is anti-CG. CG, please. Fix this real quick. 20, please, thank you. What is going on? That is okay. There we go. Now it's working as it should. Okay, so option 1 that you're bringing to the table is anti-CG, hyper break, cross shock. And then it had float legs with shape memory. And it was a fantasy theme with 2 heavy support. It's still just a little big, so let's crunch that down to 15. There we go. Okay, so tell me just a little bit about this one, Min. What kind of inspired you to want to create, keep this one as a finalist essentially for our Orimeda stream tonight?
Well, I mean, since I still have pretty limited knowledge of all this stuff, honestly, the idea of the float legs with the fantasy theme and the regenerative shape memory ability, I don't know. I just got the idea of like maybe some kind of like floating like spellcaster or something, something kind of mystical like that.
Okay, I can see where you're going with that, especially given a lot of the other skills that this brings to the table. Anti-CG in particular is a powerful shooting-based attack that when I'm sorry, not shooting, melee-based attack that checks the target's charge gauge for bonus damage. So the higher of an energy charge that the opponent has, the more painful the attack becomes with its bonus modifiers. Hyper Break is a gravity attribute shooting skill that gets a success plus relative to the user's charge gauge, but also is best known for its ability of Heavy Punish. So the heavier the target is, the more painful that the bonus is on the backside, and this one specifically also ignores defense, so a lot more painful than your standard gravity attribute skills. Cross Shock is a melee skill that is a scatter skill, which will hit one part normally and then two others randomly, but it also is a guaranteed hit and guaranteed crit, so it doesn't matter how often you hit the target, every single hit is going to be painful. Float Legs, like you said, means it's going to have relatively solid coverage on all terrains, and Shape Memory means that even if it is a little squishy, every single time it charges Metaforce, it'll equalize its HP to even bring back broken ones, so that gives it just a little bit of a hand in overall survival, as long as they can keep their HP up relatively high with a healer. And heavy support of 2 is really nice as well, so relatively modest and pretty solid stats across the board. Can't really go wrong with it. And the fantasy theme, pretty much like you said, will have a lot of different possibilities on how we can interpret that. And if we want to go with a magus or a wizard kind of idea, that definitely is a very good opportunity as well. So definitely a very solid candidate that we have starting us off here with the first one. Now the second one that you had set up here. Shrink this again. 15, thank you. Option 2 had a kit of Revenge Sword, Shoot Guard, Fire, Multi-Legs, and Rumbling, with a Gothic theme. Oops, hold on. Wait, there it is. There it is. Gothic with a heavy support of 0. So this is going to be a very lightweight one. Okay, so option 2. Give me your thoughts on this one. What kind of inspired this one?
Well, hearing about the heavy support thing is a little concerning to me, but the thought I had was just kind of the classic combination, like the melee fire ability and then shoot guard. I was kind of thinking sort of like a frontline defender type.
Okay.
Kind of like a knight, defending the rest of your team kind of thing.
Okay. I could see that, especially with the theme of Gothic. That does give us a very interesting aesthetic for what we can choose to go with. But yeah, pretty much like you said, as like a mixed utility defender. Revenge Sword is a melee skill that when attacking the enemy gets double damage and piercing if the part using it is under 50% HP. So this is essentially, if you're gonna go down, you're gonna go down swinging when using this. Shoot Guard is a defense skill that will allow the user to place a defensive stance on the front line and intercept all incoming attacks. However, anything that has a shooting attribute skill is instantly nullified and converted to 0 as long as they stay on the line using this defensive stance. Fire is a negative ailment skill that when attacking the target inflicts them with a damage over time, which will make it just a little bit easier on the back end to whittle them down over time and eventually break multiple things at once, very solidly for charge synergy as well, based on metal nature. Multi-legs means it has relatively solid coverage as well, trades us a little bit of speed for some overall bulk in some cases, and the rumbling leg ability grants it the fight boost effect, which is a 50% boost to melee damage when charging Metaforce. So, relatively solid and synergetic kit here it has going on, especially with 2 melee attribute skills that can benefit from rumbling immediately. And the heavy limit of 0, even if that does mean it's not going to have a lot of weight to it, that's really not going to be too much of a detriment, because there are actually some pretty solid shielders that do not have a heavy limit and focus more on speed and agility more than actually tanking hits or packing the bulk. So not really anything in particular that'll serve as a concern or weakness, much like you were saying. Now, option 3, as we continue on down the line, we have some pretty solid options here so far, honestly, so it's going to be pretty tough just between those two alone. So, option 3 has a kit of Frenzy. Oops, hold on. Frenzy, Void Shot, Beam Claw, with Float Legs and Excel, with a mythical theme and a heavy limit of 2. HP 2. Okay, so option 3. What was your justification for this one?
There were a couple of these that I wasn't completely sure how they'd work out. I think I was just sort of thinking, just sort of like a high-speed bruiser type, just kind of move around and deal out a lot of damage. I think that was kind of the impression I got from the Frenzy part.
Oh yes, it's definitely picking up from there. To explain the kits briefly, Frenzy will give basically all parts except legs and all stat boosts, so Success, Power, Heat, Cool will get a boost of about 50%. At the cost, it will also... Hold on one second. I just noticed here. Let me fix that. There we go. At the cost, it'll debuff their shoot and their melee resist by 80%. So essentially, you are shredding your defense at the cost of gaining an all-stat bonus that will allow you to deal more damage and move just a little bit faster. At the cost, if you take the hit, you are going to be feeling the pain for it. Void Shot is a shooting skill that gets damage plus relative to how light the target is. So, contrasting to gravity skills, which are focusing on weight, Void Shot is the lighter the target, the more painful the attack. Beam Claw is an optic attribute scatter skill, so much like Cross Shock, it'll damage one part normally and 2 others randomly, but as an optic attribute skill, it gets a double damage bonus at 30% charge and a triple damage bonus at 100%, giving it just a little bit of a hand in a charge sustain. Plus, the float legs, much like it was with the first one, means it's going to have relatively modest stats with balanced compatibility across all terrains, and the leg ability of Excel allows it to go just a little bit faster when charging Metaforce with a mobile boost. So, honestly, it's a pretty solid, a bruiser, like you said, with being able to shred the defense and kind of go all in as a glass cannon, so to speak. So, really creative thought there with that kind of kit. What kind of stood out to you the most about this one?
I like I said, I was just really taken by the Frenzy ability, and I just thought it's like, wow, this seems like one of those. I mean, yeah, just kind of a cruise missile sort of thing. Just, send this guy out. Maybe there's a enemy target that you just are like, I'm not going to be able to win if that guy's on the table. So just send this guy out to make sure that that bot gets shut down. Yeah.
Going all in. So I can definitely see where it's going with that one. And the mythical aesthetic means we can take this in a lot of different ways. We could take it as a yokai, beast of legend, history, historical. There's lots of different ways that we could take this one. All right, and then finally, option number 4 that was brought to the table. There we go. Option 4 had a kit of Beam Sword, Guard Boost, Freeze, with Flight Legs and Hostility. And it had a medieval theme with a heavy support of 3. So this one's definitely going to be packing on the weight. Okay, so option 4. Definitely packing the weight, so it's not going to be as fast as what you'd expect most other flight legs to sit at, but still relatively solid all the same. Beam Sword is an optic attribute skill, so much like Beam Claw gets a double and triple damage bonus at 30 and 100% charge, but instead pierces instead it gets a scatter effect. Guard Boost grants a 50% to all allies shoot and melee resist, making them just a little bit more resistant to taking incoming attacks. Freeze is a negative ailment that will stop the enemy in their tracks and guarantee that, while frozen, the next incoming hit is guaranteed to land and guaranteed to be a critical hit on top of that. Flight Legs means it's going to have relatively solid and higher mobility and agility at the cost of having near non-existent armor in trading for that speed. However, given that it does have a heavy limit of 3, that is going to be kind of turned around a little bit, where it's going to trade a good chunk of its naturally high speed and evade for bulk, especially with the ability of hostility kind of tying into that, which, upon being attacked, gives it an all-leg stat boost, stacking up to 5 times. So, what are your thoughts overall on this one specifically, man? Kind of tell me your thoughts behind it.
I think this is probably the one I was the least sure about, but having heard your description of the skills, I think it does kind of gel together a bit, like a very mobile, like, defensive support unit, like a
floating fortress or something.
Yeah, like get to where your team might need some help and, drop off defense boosts, or maybe with hostility, maybe take some hits and then be able to deal out some damage in return.
Which, interesting enough, actually would tie in with Guard Boost pretty solidly. So even if you choose not to go forwardly offensive right away, Guard Boost and 5 stacks of hostility, which you may or may not see immediately, do actually tie in together, kind of guarantee that you're going to stay relatively bulky once you get all those stacks. Plus, having Beam Sword means you'll have kind of a last-ditch effort when you get to that point, and Freeze kind of just for your usual auxiliary support more than any actual dedicated damage dealing. So, honestly, between all 4 of these, there's some pretty solid candidates here for what we could choose to use. So, looking at all 4 of these and kind of hearing the descriptions of them all, which one were you kind of leaning toward the most, as far as what we could bring to the table and develop?
Honestly, I think it's probably why it got up there, I think option 1 is probably the one I'm leaning more toward. But I think, honestly, like kind of like you said, I think any of these could probably be pretty interesting.
Oh, very easily. And if you decide later on to, develop one of these on your own, well, the stream's always up on my channel. I don't take them down. You just have to look them up and figure out, okay, what did it do? Oh, this is what it did. And just kind of play around with it. So just because we don't pick one doesn't mean we're going to completely do away with the idea forever. But honestly, yeah, there's a lot of really good themes here, lots of different takes that we could consider, especially between lightweight, midweight, and heavyweight, lots of different aesthetics we could consider, different skill types. So we have some pretty good candidates. So aside from option 1, was there anyone that came remarkably close, or are you still kind of sticking with option 1?
I think option 1's the one I don't know, I think I like that idea the most. Maybe less with option 3. I just kind of thought it was... The abilities seem like they work together, but I don't know if I necessarily... I don't know if I have an idea for that one, but...
You could absolutely make that kit work, but yeah, with the theme of mythical, you kind of have to think carefully on how you're going to put it together, because you kind of have to have an idea in mind. Plus, with the way I set up my Orimeda streams is I specifically instruct my guests to not show these to me until showtime, so I don't have time to think about them. Because I don't want to come into a stream after looking at it, like a week in advance and realize, oh, we're going to go with option 1 because I thought of, say, just to throw it out there, a dragon, okay? I thought option 1 would be a really good dragon, and we're kind of stuck on that train of thought the whole time and don't really have a chance to experiment. So that's why I instruct my guests not to show me these until showtimes, because I don't have a chance to think about them. You as my guest might be able to, but I myself would not. So honestly though, option 1 is definitely the strongest one here with what it brings to the table. So we'll go ahead and stick with this one for now. And if they decide to change later on, or we decide to, go back and revisit this design with something else, we can do that very easily on another stream sometime. So what I will do is put these away. Worry about them. Okay. Now we can worry about putting this thing together. Okay. And you said the idea you had in particular this was like a kind of like a magus, a wizard type. What were your what was the initial idea you had with that as you were kind of mentally formulating it ahead of time?
Just like how we had, kind of a variety of different abilities from the different parts and everything. I think the idea just kind of popped into my head of, them being like represented as different magic.
Let's see. There we go. Okay. Okay, so with the float leg, kind of get our base together. Oops. My tablet over just a little. There we go. I'm just getting the template skeleton put together. We can always expand on it as time goes on. Okay, so what are we kind of looking at with this one? Like, do we want, like with the magus design, do we want to consider something kind of like an arcane sorcerer with a beard? Do we want to do something a little different? What are some ideas we could consider for that? Because we have a lot of different kind of mage or wizard types of varying degrees in design, so we have lots of different approaches that we could consider.
I was thinking, maybe like something like I was just thinking about the float legs earlier. Maybe like something that would still be like bipedal, but is actually like floating up in the air via, like some sort of propulsion or hovering or magical effect or something like that.
So, what are your thoughts overall? Two of these. Get rid of this one. Okay. So what are your thoughts then on the idea of maybe... Hold on. Go. Kind of like a cross-legged kind of thing.
That could work.
Like kind of like a cross-legged sitting on like a tome or something, like a kind of like a base, a foundation that's like a floating book.
Oh, yeah, that could be kind of fun, yeah. I think my initial thought was just kind of like sort of free floating, like as if they were like under a fly spell or something like that.
I get
But the book idea is neat too.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that as well. But one of the big reasons I'm considering this is because most of the time when you see a lot of float legs, especially with Medarot S and its development so far, they tend to focus on making them bipedal, but not, kind of like you were saying. So they just kind of have some legs just kind of dangling there as like flotation engines. So it's definitely possible to do, absolutely. One other thing that could be done that I'm thinking about is maybe do like a flowing cape in the back that kind of like trails behind. So maybe something along those lines.
Yeah, I feel like that would definitely help sell the kind of floating feeling with that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what we could do for Hyper Break and Cross Shot, there's a couple things I could consider. What about the idea... Kind of trying to visualize this in my head. I have an idea I'm cooking up, but I'm trying to plan it out. What about the idea of like a... Kind of like a sigil... Kind of like a symbolic, like a sigiled claw or something that's like an extension of the hand.
Oh, yeah, that could be cool.
So something maybe kind of like that, essentially. And I'll come up with some kind of sigil for it, essentially, when we get to that point. And then just kind of do like your traditional wizard staff on the other hand, maybe like a twisted staff or something. To designate Hyper Break. So something kind of like this, essentially.
Yeah, I like that so far. That seems like it could be really cool.
What I'm thinking we could do, and we can always refine it later and see what we come up with. So what I'm thinking of, we're gonna go with the wizard design. Let's see. Do. What if I'm on the right layer? I have an idea here. Go with this real quick. Thinking. Something kind of like this. Oops, that is a little big of an eraser than I like the idea of making this flow. Let's make this a little bigger. Long, spindly kind of thing. Like this. Squinted eye. Up a little. Maybe something kind of like that for a head.
Yeah. Well, this one's just my personal bias. I kind of like to stay away from the like cliche old man, like crusty old man with a beard wizard.
Right.
But
I get you. Now I had an idea specifically, and I'm gonna kind of sketch it over here on the side to show you my idea. I'm like, so that's what I was gonna say. Hear me out, because I have an idea with it. Is if you look at it from the side. Let me actually. I'll draw this a little better, closer to the end when we actually get to that point. Is set it up like that for the beard, kind of like away from the head. But then for the hat. Kind of see what I'm going after?
yeah, so you get the crescent moon
Yeah,
thing.
kind of like a crescent moon idea. It just doesn't show very well with the front facing. But that was my idea with it essentially. It's kind of give it more, kind of give it that arcane feel to it. What are your thoughts on that overall? You think that could, we could make that work, or probably redesign it a little differently?
I think, if it's up to me, like I like the hat design so far. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of the like old guy with the beard thing. I do like the crescent moon thing. I'm wondering if there's maybe some other way we could go with that though.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying. That's what I was thinking. Like, if we're gonna do, because usually when you think like wizard, sorcerer, it is just kind of something that you work with that just kind of appears as a stereotype. So I kind of get the idea that it does feel kind of overdone, but at the same time though, if you do it right and execute it, you can actually make it look really stylish. So that was this was my initial idea with it, and even what we could do to kind of like really tie it together is do like a little, hold on, put like a little star on top of it or something, kind of give it more of an arcane theme to it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm figuring, something kind of along the lines of this, and we can kind of work it into the rest of the concept. So that was my idea anyway. Let's, like I said, with this design doesn't always have to guarantee stick. It's just something that's like a tentative. Let's see how it looks.
Yeah.
Get rid of that because I did not want that on this one. There. Let me go back over here. So what I'll do to kind of tie that back. I actually do kind of like the star idea. To kind of ground it a little bit. Is there a particular reason that you seem kind of impartial to the overall concept, or pretty much like you said, it just feels like it's overdone?
I don't know. I guess just it's partially overdone, and then I guess partially just my own personal aesthetic.
Right, yeah. kind of give it a little more of a whimsical feel.
Mhm.
While I'm working on this in the meantime, so tell us just a little bit more about yourself in this case, man. Like, what made you want to become a content creator?
Um, well, I mean, I've always had fun, telling people stories and like recounting crazy things that have happened.
Uh-huh.
Like my friends and I would get together and we'd share crazy things that happened to us in like, whatever game we were playing at the time. Uh, and I just always had a lot of fun, recounting like the wacky things that would happen to me and everything. And then, like learning about, when people started getting big into content creation and everything, like when like YouTube and everything started blowing up. I just remember thinking, I was like, wow, that's really cool that people are able to, like do that and be able to, like share all these, crazy things that, are happening to them and everything, like just with, hundreds or thousands or, obviously in some cases, millions of people.
Oh yeah.
And I think I was just captivated by that idea, just like, wow, like you can, share these, wacky things that happen with you and, like things that, made you laugh, made you cry, whatever it was with, just all these different people at once, people that otherwise would never have, heard of this thing or, never would have gotten to experience that.
So it's mostly like the narration storytelling aspect of being a content creator that appealed to you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not necessarily like story, like a specific narrative, but like, the story of like that experience, the funny thing that happened or, like the really cool thing that, you did unintentionally or whatever like that. Being able to share that moment with other people.
I get you. That's honestly a really good point though, because more often than not, a lot of people say, oh, I wanted to be a content creator, because everyone else was doing it, or I wanted to play a game or something, because I saw, say, Markiplier, for instance, do it and it looked fun. Or a lot of VTubers especially will say, they were around when, Kizuna Ai started really making the VTuber scene popular, and they wanted to be like her, who supposedly actually is making a return based on what I heard recently. But a lot of people say, they wanted to do things similar to that. So it's really neat that, the ability to kind of tell people about things that you experience or that you want to share with them. It's really interesting for that because, you'll see a lot of content creators come up with like a just chatting stream or whatever, where they'll do something similar to that. But you don't really see a lot of people actually doing that. Like it just kind of turns into like a rant or event eventually. Especially depending on the content creator as well. Like some of them do chatting streams really, really well, but for the most part, I think a lot of newer ones as well kind of misconstrue what exactly a just chatting is, and they kind of assume it as like I can talk about things and people will listen to me complain kind of thing,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I like to kind of come at that, the opposite way. Like, I don't generally have a, big enough regular audience that I can do like a just chatting, but like, I know I'd like to do that just, like, hey, like, here's this really cool thing that happened. And, I want to, I want to share it with other people. I want other people to, be able to experience like, what I was feeling when that thing happened.
Uh-huh. I gotcha. Actually, you know what? I have a better idea for the leg, because the cross-legged is a nice idea, but kind of go with the flowing. What I'm thinking I could do... Backtrack just... How long have you been in the, been doing content creation?
I've been doing it off and on since, gosh, I changed brands once at some point in there. I've actually been doing this off and on since like 2020, I think.
Oh wow, okay. So about the time that the pandemic started shutting everybody in.
Yeah, and right about the time that the like Hololive and the VTuber thing really kicked in.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I was definitely one of those people, like we were talking about before when it came to the content creator thing. I always liked the idea of like doing the content creation type of stuff, but I didn't necessarily like the idea of like visually kind of going public. I was thinking, it's like, well, I would kind of prefer to stay, more anonymous, not necessarily have my actual face out there.
Kind of stay quiet, essentially.
Yeah. But like looking at the way that, like Let's Players and YouTubers and stuff did that, and all the stuff I've learned since then, it's really important having some sort of, visual representation when it comes to, connecting with your audience.
Yeah, 'cause how are they going to know it's you aside from just hearing what you sound like?
Yeah, and then, like getting to, like the, like facial expressions add so much to, like a reaction when it comes to something, or, how, seeing how something affects someone. So for me, that was kind of why I didn't get into content creation before that. But then when VTubing blew up, I was like, oh, wait, so now all this, face tracking and, digital avatar stuff is becoming more accessible. That sounds like a perfect opportunity to, be able to do content creation and, have a face that people can see to, for reactions and everything without having to have my actual face out there.
Right.
And then that also tied into, loving, art and creative stuff like that and everything. I was like, oh, so I can have, a idealized representation of myself out there.
Yeah, exactly. And that was that's the charm that got with a lot of people is, you could create a design that is uniquely you, that you really won't see elsewhere, or even if you do, it's so uniquely you that it stands out from others.
Mm. Yeah, and that was, a big part, as far as I was concerned. I was like, okay, so I definitely want to, do this, but, gosh, what am I trying to say? I came up with the design for, like, my VTuber. I didn't do the final art and the rigging, but, it was my design that I, drew myself and everything, and, like, gave that over to someone with a bit more practice under their belt as far as making a good finalized version of the design and everything.
Right. And there's definitely a lot of people that have made very lucrative careers out of working with VTubers and content creators. Like, have you seen how much these people charge for, even just for rigging, let alone art?
Mm-hmm. And I've also seen why that is, like what's underneath.
I 100% understand why they charge so much. It's just that you look at that and you're going, ow, is it really that expensive? And then you try it yourself, it's like, oh, I'd pay you double now.
Yeah, the person that did my rigging, who I'm now friends with, sent me one of those the node horror PNGs, like of having like all the like animation nodes like selected at the same time. It's terrifying.
Oh yeah,
just
like it's
all the parts and points you have to map out and everything.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. I mean, even with me, and I've learned, I self-taught myself 3D modeling, so I know the basic concept of like what goes into making a model look good, what goes into what's necessary to make it run or behave. I get all that, but live 2D rigging in particular, that's a whole nother beast. Like you got to make sure that you know what you're doing if you're going to be considering that. So I have a lot of respect for people that took the time to master that skill and offer it as a service that they give to others. I have a lot of respect for those. And yeah, I'm going to offer a little bit of a shout out here if I am indeed correct. But am I correct in assuming that it was Smay that did the rigging and art for your design?
Yeah. There was a whole big thing with that. She was doing a contest back in the day, and I somehow ended up winning that, and so that led to just a whole bunch of crazy stuff that ended up with me getting a VTuber model.
He's super nice. I don't get to talk with them super often these days, but would definitely love to try to have them on my channel for an Orimeda stream like this sometime. Their art's definitely a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
So, friendly shout out to Smay if they're in here tonight. Definitely a good friend with what they put together, and very quality art at that.
Honestly, it's because of them that I'm, like really made any of these connections or anything. Honestly, they're kind of the one that like pulled me into the whole VTuber thing in the first place.
How so?
I
aside from drawing the model, obviously, but
yeah, but before that, like before I even knew about that or anything, when I was just like first looking at the whole VTuber thing and trying to figure out like what it even was, I just purely by chance, like on, I think it was even Facebook, like that's how long ago it was, ran into a group that was, it was doing art stuff. So like convention related, like Artist Alley type of things. And if I remember correctly, Smay was like talking with people about like VTuber and like Live 2D type stuff there. And I ended up striking up a conversation. We were talking about that, and that led to me getting directed to, it's like, oh, we'll go talk to these people. They have a group they're getting together where all these people are, teaching each other and learning about, VTubing and everything. And pretty much all of my like networking as a streamer and everything like started there. I branched out from all of that.
Oh, gotcha. So Smay ultimately was the one that kind of got you hooked on the fun parts of being a content creator.
Yeah, and helped me get going with all the the networking bits, and like gave me kind of a circle to move around in and meet people in and everything.
I gotcha. Yeah, Smay is honestly a really nice person like that. I really need to try to reach out to them a little more often and try to coordinate something.
Yeah, we've been talking about that.
Maybe if they show up in chat, I'll just say, "Hey, I want to invite you. Tell me a date that you're free. I'll work around it."
Yeah, we've been talking off and on about doing some sort of collab thing too.
Yeah, I'll put them on the spots and then say, "Hey, you're in my chat. When do you want to stream next?" Can't say no if I call you out. No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I'm not that mean.
Yeah, we've talked like via DMs and whatnot, like off and on periodically since I kind of joined the community and all that. We've been talking about doing some like collab type stuff. We haven't actually gotten to the point of actually figuring anything out yet, but it's definitely on the list of things to do.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I definitely want to try to coordinate with Smay at some point with the same thing, because I've seen, actually, funnily enough, I can honestly say the same with the fact that a lot of Smay stuff is kind of what got me involved with the early content creation too, because when I wanted to first learn how to do the live 2D stuff, and granted, her stuff might be just a little bit out of date because they've made so many different versions now that are updated and lots of quality of life stuff and such, but no, a lot of their early tutorials as well are things that I did look at and get from my initial like how-tos and basic understanding in general of how like live 2D works and what goes into making something for live 2D. So honestly, kind of crazy how small the world gets when you think about it.
Guess that's the magic of networking with people, though, too.
Oh yeah.
But honestly, for me, it was the same thing. I was following Smay's live 2D tutorials back in the day, trying to figure that stuff out for myself. So yeah, I was also there doing that kind of thing.
I have an idea for this.
Oh, on that note, I really like how this robe has come out so far.
Yeah, I'm thinking about making it like a 2-piece or a 3-piece, where like it's a protective one piece plate at the front, and then like the back is like 2 separate pieces or something. That's what I'm thinking. Something kind of similar to that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking for the sleeves, I have an idea in mind. Kind of like a crescent moon kind of thing to kind of perpetuate the theme that we're going with here. My pencil will work with me, but I'll do this enough. Again, or go around. So what were some initial goals that you put together when you first decided that you wanted to do the content creation thing?
Oh gosh, when I first started, I was so intimidated by the whole thing that honestly, like, my goals started off being like, let's just see if I could even get myself out there and even do this. I
Very
was,
fair.
yeah, I was never, a big, like giving speeches, like talking to large groups of people type. I was thinking when I started, I was thinking of, like comparing it to like, I don't know, like an assignment at school or something where you had to like, read out an essay or something like that.
Right. Especially when you see all these big corpo VTubers doing it too, because they
Yeah.
have such a big following, they have to keep a form of schedule and order in order to keep things going.
Mhm.
So we kind of falsely, well, I'm not going to say falsely, that's not necessarily the right word, but in this case, we kind of overthink it to the point where like, oh, well, if it's having that kind of order as requirement, then then I should do the same thing too. Which works, like you absolutely can do it that way. But at the same time, you also can be very sporadic with your stuff. You can just jump into it and just see who joins or do something similar to that. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do it. And that's the big charm to it is there's no wrong way to be a content creator.
Yeah, and that was kind of something that I continued learning as time went on. Like, yeah, seeing the huge, like enormous scaled streamers like with Hololive and all the people like that. It's like initially I thought it's like, oh, this seems really unapproachable. Like this is really, a crazy thing that like probably only a few select people would be able to do. But then seeing more of the indie streamers and like running into a lot of different like styles and approaches to all that stuff made me think it's like, oh well, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Like not everyone's schedule or streaming is that regimented. Not everyone is that formal with how they interact with people.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people that are just kind of basically just hanging out with their friends, and also their friends include whoever happens to be in chat that day.
Yeah, they just happen to be streaming it because they felt like it.
Yeah. And so like learning that after a while, that kind of made it
a little easier to pick up on it.
Yeah, it's easier it's less intimidating at that point.
Yeah. Because let's be real, everyone's like, oh, I have to do everything perfect the first time or no one will follow me. No, you don't. You're overthinking it.
Yeah, I definitely remember going through that part and being like, it's like, well, I don't know. I didn't do this perfectly, so now it's going to be, it's going to be horrible. I took a really long time to debut my Live 2D because of that, because, well, I mean, how with like Hololive and, the big, corpos and all that, like how big of a deal it is for a debut.
Oh, yeah.
So my thought was, oh, well, I have to get to the point, where, I'm already doing okay and everything because, the debut is like my one chance to, really get viewers and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so my debut, like, got delayed by, I want to say, like, almost a year because I was, convinced I had to get to this arbitrary threshold before I could do it.
Yeah, and it doesn't really help either that you see a lot of these content creators and VTubers just kind of sprout up out of nowhere, and within like 2 or 3 months they have like 6,000 followers on the platform, but they haven't actually done anything. Like they don't have any content. They haven't streamed any, if at all. They just keep saying, "Oh, I made 4,000 subscribers. Thank you so much, guys. I'll be streaming soon." Like, I understand, with the schedule, you kind of have to work around it, and there's a little bit of nervousness. I understand it, but, like, you can't just keep saying you're a pre-debut forever, because people are going to be kind of expecting you to be streaming at some point, or they're not going to be interested in following you.
Yeah. Well, thinking about that, I at least didn't fall into that trap. I was streaming, I just was a PNG tuber for much longer than I probably should have been.
Well, honestly, there's nothing wrong with being a PNG tuber either. I mean, when I started 4 years ago, I used one of the old PNGs that I commissioned from a friend of mine, and I just decided, you know what, why not? I'll give it a try, and eventually I worked my way up to a live 2D model with an artist that did some wonderful quality for my V2 model, But it's honestly kind of funny because my designs actually kind of went in reverse, because I started in 3D with VR chat and worked my way backwards into live 2D.
Ah.
So I kind of already had a design by the time that I was ready to pull the trigger on that. But then came the question of, well, where am I going to get it done? Because you see all these people charging, like $1,000 just for like a half body up, and it's like I don't have that kind of money.
Yeah. Oh, but just to address something earlier, yeah, absolutely nothing against anybody PNG tubing. When I say I was a PNG tuber for longer than I probably should have been, I'm talking about the time when, Smay had sent me the model and it was ready to go, and I was still doing the PNG tubing and, thinking, I have to save this for the right point, I have to, build up to, X arbitrary amount of, people so that I can, theoretically, blow up in popularity when I do my debut, because that seemed to be for a lot of those people, like the big thing that, multiplied their viewer base.
Yeah, they do like a follower count contest to see when they review it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get where you're going with that. I understand. But, yeah, it's one of those things where you either do really well at it or you don't. And like I said, a lot of those content creators that kind of just sprout up out of nowhere, and within like 4 months they have like 6,000 subscribers or something, but they haven't actually posted anything. It kind of, I don't want to say frustrating, because that's not really the right word to use, but it becomes kind of a discouragement after a while, because, here you are trying to work on putting something creative together to kind of stand out on your own, but here's someone who just kind of pops up out of nowhere, and suddenly, they have like 3,000 subscribers where it only took you like 2 years to get like 400. And it's kind of like, well, what's the difference? What's the point? Or what am I doing wrong? It gets kind of frustrating after a while.
Yeah, definitely. I totally understand that one. I think I've said it to a couple of people now. I am the smallest streamer I know. I haven't, let that completely discourage me, but I mean, I'd be lying if I said that wasn't part of the reason for why I end up on a hiatus every now and then.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. I kind of felt the same thing every now and then, where I see a lot of these content creators with like 7 or 8K subscribers or even more, and I'm just kind of looking at what I do. It's like, well, what's even the point half the time? Because it's they just have such a higher viewer count. I'm not going to hit that at any point. So it gets to be a discouragement after a while, and it's definitely a big struggle. The big catch with it as well is you just have to make sure that you surround yourself with people that are willing to kind of support you on that and kind of work with you. Because more often than not, you'll come across somebody who knows exactly what they're doing, and you start with a couple collabs with them, you do some stuff on your own. Before you know it, you're just kind of doing it casually, and you're not even thinking about it. Honestly, that's what makes it super great, is the fact that you can do virtually whatever you want, within reason. But there's no wrong way to do it. So let's say, for instance, if you decide that you want to do a Let's Play of Ocarina of Time, which I'm very strongly considering at one point. I've actually been thinking about doing it for a while. The only reason I haven't is because I've also been debating between that, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword HD, so I have lots of titles I'm debating because they're all good. But I've thought about it, but yeah, I mean, like, for instance, you and I could both stream Ocarina of Time, but there'll be two completely different experiences for both gameplays, because they'll never be two of the same one, because your experiences, your reactions, your interactions will be completely different from mine. So that's honestly what made it super great too, is the fact that you can do it so many different ways.
Yeah. That also kind of ties into what I was saying before about like the sharing experiences thing. Like, like obviously, your stream is going to have, all the various things that you did, and, like the, cool or funny things that happened during your playthrough. But then, like, if I also did the same playthrough, like, your stream wouldn't have the moment where I, had some sort of, freak out because, like, my controls went crazy and I threw Link off the top of Death Mountain accidentally and started screaming about it.
Exactly. Or you decide to play a crowd control and they decided to yeet you into Ganon's castle because why not?
Yeah, exactly. And then, all the things that come from that, like chat's reactions and then, your reactions to what chat says and everything, it all becomes very quickly completely unique.
Exactly. And that's honestly the most important thing with it, though, is the ability to have that unique experience that is like no one else.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I'm kind of thinking so far with the initial design. I just have to figure the sleeves out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely like the body and leg part so far. I had an idea, although I can't find the thing for my tablet. I'm trying to sketch something out here because I had an idea for a tweak to the head part.
Okay.
But,
yeah, absolutely. While you're working on that.
Pretty sure I lost a battery for one of my things I use with my tablet, and I can't figure out where it went.
Gotta love technology like that.
Yep. Okay, I'll probably just have to do this manually then and work a bit slower, but...
And honestly, it's something I'll never grow tired of is, the ability that comes with creating something entirely unique, because there are over 1,000 different types of designs, canonically in Medarot, from the very beginning, from Medarot 1 to even the current, and that's not even touching on the custom, like the guest designs that were brought in by very famous artists, or the collaborations that Medarot S has had over the last several years. There's just so many different ways that you can translate putting something together or chibify it or make something unique. And even if you have, say, a beetle, say, as a perfect example, the KBT series, there are almost 20 different, I think there are 20 different KBT types in the same family as Metsubi.
Oh, wow.
Over 20. Most of
them, and it's all just different variations and things, right?
But they're all a beetle in some form or fashion. But they're completely different interpretations of beetle.
Mm-hmm.
I figured something kind of like this for the early sketch.
Mm-hmm. I like how the staff came out too.
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of surprised. I'm actually kind of proud of that one.
Thinking about the left arm, the big claw thing that you had kind of quick doodled out earlier.
Yeah.
What if we had like the regular hand there, but then also had like a big claw, like I don't know, like wrapped around that arm or something?
Well, that's what I was thinking. Is pretty much it'd be linked essentially to the hand in particular, but I have to figure out some kind of like rune for it. But figure something along the lines of like that.
Oh yeah.
And it'd be kind of floating alongside on the side of the hand.
Mm.
That was my idea, anyway.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Gotta figure out what I want to do for it, so I might come over here and play around with that while you're thinking up another idea for the head design. Thinking is for the claw.
Ooh, I have a design guide question, I think.
Okay.
If something for a Metabot design like is like would normally like for whatever the thing is based off of, if it's supposed to be made out of like a soft material or like cloth or something, would it be converted into just a like solid metal part, or like are there?
It honestly depends. Like, there are some points where, yeah, they'll take an actual cloth or do something similar, or they'll turn it into, like, a plate armor. Like, for instance, as a good example, just trying to think of a good example. Oh yes, the anime version of Rokusho they released for Medarot Day 2023. Obviously, everyone knows Rokusho as the Silent Ronin with that ratty cloak. But when they made the anime-specific version of Rokusho to set him apart from the commercial version already in game, they let him keep his cloak. And I'm going to send this to you in DMs. They let him keep his cloak, but they turned it into a plate armor.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
So there's lots of different ways that you can consider it as a possibility. I think of another one that did something similar to that. Let me think. I know Leader Colonel from the Rockman Battle Network collaboration, Network Transmission collaboration, did something similar to that with Leader Colonel, and they turned his lower legs into like a 4-piece plated cloak. Even find that real quick. Hold on. Where is it? Here it is. And then for a arm cape, they did the same thing with a kind of like with a layered plate. So there are definitely different ways to do it. Figure out what circle it. Oh my god, yeah. Let me think. Working on this. No. I could try. Serrated spectral edge. Yes, and I can actually get it to follow what I want to do. Actually, what I might do, I'm gonna emulate Smilodons. But what I will do, taper it to a point. I'm gonna like find a connect properly. There we go. That. Serrated. Like that.
Ooh, yeah.
No, I think that feels too insectoid.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that. It's a cool shape, but
that's... I like the idea I was going with it, but not for this one. It looked too insectoid. Not for like not for like a Magus or something. What I'm thinking. I'm trying to think of how we could also incorporate like a moon or star theme into it. Because that I gotta kind of think about as well. So what we could do... This one's kind of trumping me. There's some ways that we could incorporate it. I was thinking maybe we could do like a kind of like a floating sickle, like a crescent moon. Something kind of like that. And it'd be like it can be like a projection, you know, that he would just swing, you know, that would mirror his hand movement.
Well, thinking about the claw thing and then thinking about that, what if it was like kind of mixing it with the previous idea. What if it was like a bunch of like the crescent moon thing that's like floating, but like flatten it down and then have like a couple kind of like stacked up on top of each other.
Okay. So kind of like a bunch of sickles sitting on top of each other, essentially.
Yeah, but you know, together to kind of work like a claw.
Okay, I can see it.
Because then we can keep the shape language of the crescent moon and everything, but it would functionally still work like something that you swipe at people with.
See it. Maybe something kind of like... Would be proper. This is why I enjoy doing the collaborative stream, because when I get stuck on something like this, it's gonna be just a bunch of silent time of me just staring at my screen, figuring out what to do with it. And all those classes in public speaking told me if there's long periods of silence like that, that's bad.
Yeah. There's also the thing that we always panic about if we're doing a stream in general. It's like, oh no, I've got to fill the dead air. What do I do?
Yep, exactly.
Start rambling about inane things, quick.
Yeah, exactly. Alright.
Design that I was working on is also being difficult.
That's another possibility.
Oh?
You could do like a kind of like a crescent axe kind of thing, kind of like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, then we definitely have like real strong, like symbolism there and everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Especially with cross shock being a melee attack, I could make that work.
Mm.
I kind of like that. I think I'll go with that. I don't need this anymore. What I'll do, kind of keep in line with the conjuring idea that we had. It'll be ejection. Something that just kind of follows his hand move.
Oh, so it'd just be like, basically like the kind of the floating axe head just kind of hovering there?
Yes.
Ooh, I like that. Oh, hey, wait a second. Why didn't the playlist stopped? Oh, it's doing the "Are you still watching" thing.
Yeah, that's why I check it every couple songs on my end too, just to make sure that doesn't die on me.
Mm.
So far, it's also the only playlist I've been able to play where it doesn't slap me for some kind of copyright warning because I'm playing a remix of someone else's thing.
Nah.
Shouldn't technically bother anything because I'm not monetized, but still.
Yeah.
Actually, kind of like the idea of just like one, and then follow it with like a bunch of like stars.
Yeah? Yeah, that could work.
It'd be like a multi-hit behind the moon kind of thing.
Mm. Like if the moon connects, then like the stars follow up for some extra damage type of thing.
Exactly.
Mm. Yeah, that's a cool idea.
There we go. like that, essentially.
Mm.
It'd be like a conjuring that comes in when he when he waves his hand as he goes into attack.
Mm. We
That's
could have
my
some.
that's my idea with it so far.
Mm. Yeah, I think honestly the only part of this that I still got to have an issue with is just the head, but.
Yeah, and like I said, I kind of went with that because, the idea of like a magus or a wizard, it's just kind of the thing that you think of immediately. But
Yeah.
I figured to kind of make it stand out, I was going to do the crescent moon kind of style and make the beard just kind of like taper up to match the hat. So it would look kind of different from the front, but if you look at it from the side, it actually kind of tie in with that, with the symbolic design.
But I think with the now with the left arm the way it is and the shoulder guards and everything, I think we have a decent amount of the crescent moon like kind of symbolism going on already.
We do. I'm just trying to think of how else we could translate that.
Yeah. The thing that I was fumbling with iterating because I can't find the rest of my drawing stuff. I liked the idea of the how you had like the mustache like trailing off with the stars on the end of it. But since I was, complaining about the whole old man thing, the thing I was thinking of was like changing that design element to be like a scarf or something. And then like keep the stars on the end of it, and it could be like hanging around like behind them somewhere or something like that.
So how about this as another idea? Is I can kibosh the crescent moon with the hat and the beard idea, and what I could do is the popular mustache on the Turn A Gundam, right? You kind of see where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
And just do something like really outlandish that kind of circles all the way up, like kind of like a mask.
Yeah.
Doing something kind of similar to that.
I mean, that's wacky enough that I feel like we at least need to iterate on it just to see what we think.
That's what I'm thinking. Is like throw something together here real quick as an idea. What I'm thinking of, similar concept as initially, but it's gonna look really wacky on here. I'm gonna reiterate it later when I do the proper thing. But say, for instance, it'd be something kind of like, but it would actually have a full crescent all the way up, and it would kind of match with the hat as it would like taper backward instead of forward.
Yeah, I do. Well, okay, I'll say this much: I like that more than the one that we have right now, because that definitely gives us a unique shape at the very least.
That's what I was thinking too. Is something kind of like that essentially is something that we can play around with. Let me make sure I don't. Okay. What we could do. Let me erase this a little bit and rework. So what we'll do. Because I kind of feel the beard is going to tie in the bot, because we want to use that to conceal, where it attaches with the neck. So what I'll do is I'll shrink it down, say to about right here, make it notably smaller. So it'll still kind of be there, but not like nearly as not as heavy as it was before. Because we can also use that as a stylistic concealment. And that gives us some room to kind of experiment with what to do with the chest. So. Pull this a little farther down. actually gonna change. I want to change the eye idea too. If we're gonna do it that way, maybe we'll put a visor in here, a proper visor in here or something.
Hmm.
I have an idea of how I want to possibly decent. Kind of give it a little bit of a shape.
Oh, so that's also part of the mustache?
Yeah, so what I'm thinking... Just that it's not an outright crescent, you know, that's just so blatant. Thinking... What's up? Kind of like that, essentially. Then we can redesign. Then we can redesign the face a little bit.
You know, it's ridiculous, but I kind of love that shape, like hanging out there.
Yeah, and what I can do is I will take this off, and we'll tilt the hat backward instead of forward.
Mm-hmm.
There's these layers. Redesign a little bit of the head structure a little bit. I'm thinking... I don't want to do an expressive emote visor. I think that might be kind of overdone in this case. So what I'm thinking, maybe a simple monocolor.
I do like the visor type heads. I always thought those were really cool looking.
Okay, let's stick with that then.
And also already just those changes, like I feel like we're quite a bit more comfortably away from kind of the like super cliche like
old
definitely. Man in the blue robe with the stars and moons and stuff.
Oh yeah,
but we still kind of have some of that theme. We're just not doing it that exact way.
Exactly. And that's honestly the really nice thing too with concept design is, you know, it's never going to be, the final product is almost typically never going to be the same than the initial first one or two prototypes.
Mm-hmm.
What I might do, I do want to add just a little bit here. I'll tie it in just better. I can do for the body. Let me split going. Yes. A little bit of off to the road. Kind of like that, essentially.
Yeah? Yeah, I think that looks pretty good.
As a neat little idea too, what I'm thinking of is, let me actually show you another one I'm kind of thinking about for the design idea. Where is it? What I'm thinking of is something along the lines of kind of like what they did with Anzuto Beetle, where it's not a visor built into the face, but it's very purposely built out. So it's like kind of like a glass, like kind of like an actual visor.
Oh, so it sits in front of the
correct.
In front of the face.
But what I'm thinking of, it could be used for like emotes, so like or expressions. So like if it's going to like it could flash say like stars or dots along when it's going to attack or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm thinking of initially. What we could do is let me tie this back in. Kind of start putting some aesthetic things in to kind of tie it in a little. Move this little brother out. I like this for the robe. Kind of tying it together.
Mm-hmm. Would you continue that like up onto the upper part too?
That's what I'm thinking. Like add a couple on the upper robe.
Mm.
The question is, should I include them on the sleeves or should I leave those a blank color? Because I'm thinking initially with color, I could leave the basic robe, with the stars and moon, but then the rear, like the rear cowling of the cloak and the sleeves, I could leave a blank color.
I think it might work if we have those as a blank color,
Okay.
because then we kind of have a nice we kind of have two equal parts at that point. The head and body have the stars and moon motif.
Right.
And then the kind of accessory part with like the sleeves and the cape in the back would be like the solid color.
That's kind of what I'm thinking of too so far. And honestly, I'm kind of liking where this is going. It's a very unique take that still ties in a lot of the moon and star theme as like a floating magus, while still kind of tying in a lot of what it brings to the table as a kind of combative type design. So I could definitely see where this is going.
Yeah, I think this is definitely shaping up. I'm liking how this is going so far.
Yeah, and look, double checking my chat over here too. Epic Mecha Mustache, Daft Punk Visor. That's actually the term I was looking for earlier.
Yes,
something kind of similar to that. That's actually a really good way to put it. So yeah, that's kind of what I was looking at earlier. I'm like, I know there's a theme and a name specifically for it that's better tied to, but no, honestly, I think that's a really good way to. That's actually a really good comparison for it. So definitely the way to stick with it. So what I'm thinking of now for colors. Honestly, I'm thinking about sticking like with a navy blue and a white. What are your thoughts?
Just my knee jerk, because I usually like try to stay away from like the super cliche. Like we did the classic like stars and moon thing, so I think I kind of want to move away from that color scheme. Like,
what would you have in mind?
I don't know. Maybe like maybe something with like a purple for like the base color. It's still kind of adjacent to the typical blue.
Yeah.
Just maybe shift it, play around with the colors a bit.
So how about purple gold?
Purple gold almost always looks good.
Yeah, that's what I'm figuring. We can do purple gold and then maybe like a blue visor.
Yeah, that would work.
We could do something like that. We'll play around with it. So we'll start with the gold color. See what we can put together. Work some green in there since it's with Mint's design. Oh, we can consider something like that. I'm thinking maybe like on the staff or something. Maybe even like the boots. Or like an accent color.
I could take over the little gem in the staff.
That's what I was thinking. Something kind of like that as well. Is like a something we could do with that. So I was thinking maybe like kind of like a green energy core on there, like a green crystal, and then like brown staff and boots.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I think it's something along those lines. Now, the other really big fun thing with the conventions of designing a Metarod is always with the name. Is something you gotta try to put together with it. The only the big challenge with it ultimately is coming up with something that, when translated back into Japanese, is no less than 8 characters. No more than 8 characters. So that's usually the big clincher with a lot of designs, is trying to find something that fits. On that topic, do you happen to know of or use DeepL?
I know of it. I've never used it.
I would highly recommend experimenting with it because you know how Google Lens works, obviously, right? Or in Google Translate.
Yeah.
It does a pretty solid job. Like, if you need a translation in a pinch, it's pretty good. The big problem that I've seen with Google Lens is the fact that if you're trying to translate longer sentences or phrases at once, there's a chance it might not fully catch all of the context. So there might be some pieces that you're missing out on because it just wasn't able to translate and complete the context as intended. DeepL, on the other hand, is much more thorough in the sense that it actually tries its best to keep context in mind as it's translating. So if you translate from one to the other, say from English to Japanese, it's going to stay about 98% whatever you try to translate to, which is obviously what you're hoping for. So usually the way I tell people is use Google Lens if you need something in a pinch, but if you're going for something that's more designed to be thorough, like long text of translation or books or phrases, go DeepL. And the really neat thing about DeepL is the fact that it actually has a Chrome extension. So whenever you highlight text, it actually does give you a little sidebar that pops up and says, "Would you like to translate this?" So it saves you having to constantly save a tab on your browser whenever you want to translate something. Makes it really easy when I'm communicating with my Japanese friends. The only thing that's really sticking out to mind for me as far as the naming convention, I want to try to use Magus in there somewhere. I just don't really know how to do it.
I'm terrible at names, so I'm going to be struggling with that part too.
Let's see. I see a lot of guests popping in here. Sane, welcome. It's good to see you hopping in here every now and then. I hope you're doing well this evening. Let me see. New spot art. Don't forget mint green. Yes, it can't be any other shade except mint. It needs to be. Absolutely. Equal Android 21 High. How's everyone going? Oh, pretty good. Pretty good. We're just kind of hanging out here designing an Orimeda. So we're having a lot of fun doing this.
Also, hi, Mio.
But, yeah, honestly, like I said, the naming conventions are always the fun part because, much like we said earlier with Metsubi, you know, there's over 20 different KBT types that all share the same family, but for the most part, no two really are identical. Aesthetically, anyway. So it comes up with a lot of really unique ways to approach the same concept. What I'm thinking of immediately that's coming to mind And again, it's just tentative right now until we come up with something particularly that something that sticks. Is maybe something like Astral Magus.
Yeah, I think that's a good starting point at least. Like maybe we come up with something better than that, but maybe we don't. But I think that's a good like jumping off point.
You're right, because I want to try to use Magus in there somewhere if I can help it, but that's without me double checking detail to make sure that it can still stay under 8 characters. That's the big clincher. There have been a lot of names where I've had to kind of improvise with something else because I'm like 1 character over, or the word I want to use is like 5 characters by itself. Makes things really tricky sometimes. What I'm thinking is for the cloak, I want to use a gray or a white as like an accent color. So something along the lines of the cloak, like right here. Or do you think maybe we should use something a little different that's a better complementary color?
No, I think a white or gray could work.
We're still kind of going for that, regal robes kind of look.
Mm-hmm.
So I started seeing this floating around over this afternoon while I was at work. Do you hear that apparently they're working on it? They just announced a Spaceballs 2.
Oh gosh, no, I didn't hear about that. That's amazing, though.
It just started making its rounds today. They've not announced an official title for it yet, but a lot of people are saying what they need to do is name it Spaceballs 3, looking for Spaceballs 2. And then when they actually make a trilogy, they go back and they call it Spaceballs 2 and title it Spaceballs 2, We Found It. I mean, it'd be a great way to kind of parody, the Star Wars episodic series with how they name all their movies.
Well, but remember, we already know the full title for Spaceballs 2 because it's Spaceballs 2: The Search for More Money.
Yeah, exactly. They have a lot of different ways they could consider approaching it, which is great.
Yeah. That's hilarious, though. I hadn't heard about that, but that's really funny.
It just started making rounds today, so if you haven't seen it yet, you probably will soon. And they've been talking about, who's still around from the original. And I was thinking to myself earlier in a group chat, with Sane while it was super quiet at work. I'm like, isn't Bill Pullman still around? Because I know he was in the original, and people absolutely adored him for what he did with that. Let's see, I'm thinking maybe... Should I go for a more vibrant purple, or do you think something a little more subdued is the better way to go?
I really like that particular shade of purple you have right there.
So we'll go with the subdued then. I was just thinking the same. We'll stick with this. No barf, says Workshop Mouse. Yeah, I did hear he passed away. I don't remember if it was fairly recently or it's been a couple years now. But yeah, that's definitely going to be something they have to kind of figure out.
Yeah. I was thinking about stuff that just popped up. I was freaking out when I got up earlier today. Apparently, they announced they're doing a follow-up series to Ronin Warriors.
I did hear about that recently. Yeah, that they announced it recently.
Yeah. So I was real surprised because I just bumped into that earlier, but I adored that series when I was younger.
I mean, hey, always nice when they decide to make continuations of things. Now the question, though, ultimately remains is when a period of time passes between an original and an announced sequel, continuation, whatever, is it going to measure up?
Yeah.
Because if they release something and then like 20 years they say, oh, we're making a sequel to this, you're excited on it, yeah, but at the same time you're like, but wait, it's been a hot minute since this last one. Is it going to be any good?
Yeah. On that note, though, I think it looks like they are going with it looks like it's a new cast.
Okay. That's usually one way that they can alleviate it, is step away from the original but stay within the universe.
Yeah, because you have even more, expectations if you're bringing back all the same characters and everything.
100%.
So,
like you already expect characters to behave a certain way, have certain interactions and relations, and if they try to emulate that with something that's taken far too long to design and come back to, it's not going to have the same weight because it's been so long without it. They have to kind of go back and reconstruct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think from the sound of it, there's going to be a pretty significant time skip. We're still in the same world, obviously.
Also a good way to do a continuation, yes.
So from the little blurb I was reading, it sounds like essentially it's a new cast. I think the connecting element is that the villain from the original series is back.
Okay.
So I guess we're doing the whole, now it's up to a, new generation of heroes to rise to the challenge and stop him kind of thing.
Which honestly is a way they could do it, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that gives them some freedom to, change some things up, develop a new cast to...
And it's justified.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's one thing I absolutely adored when I played Tears of the Kingdom, because, yeah, it's obviously a sequel to Breath of the Wild, and canonically, they did point out, now it's not said outwardly, blatantly, but if you pick up on context between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, a time span of about 8 years have passed. So not super long, but still fairly recently.
Yeah.
But what I loved about what they did with Tears of the Kingdom is they still use the original Hyrule from Breath of the Wild as their base, obviously. But what they did was the great upheaval. They used the plot and the calamity of the great upheaval to completely terraform large chunks of Hyrule at a time. So they were still somewhat the same as before. Like Hateno Village is still pretty remarkably similar to how it was in Breath of the Wild. But there's so much more that's different around Hateno Village because of the upheaval. And you don't even think twice about it, because when you start hearing people say, oh yeah, ever since the upheaval, things have been kind of wacky around here, you can tell yourself, oh, but it's still Hateno Village, but I can see what they mean.
Yeah.
You don't think twice about it, because you look at it and goes, oh, okay, because it justifies why it changes things.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a in-lore explanation for why everything's different.
Exactly. Like, if you're going to create a continuation of something that's continuing with pre-existing characters and a plot, you need to be able to justify it. You can't just tell the player, oh, it changed, have fun with it. They're going to ask why.
Yeah.
And if they don't tell them why, either with showing it and not telling, or even outright telling, they're going to be sitting there thinking the whole time, am I even playing the same game?
Yeah.
And that's definitely one of the biggest risks that a lot of devs try to put up with when they make sequels and continuations, is if they go to change things, they have to figure out next, how am I going to justify this change?
Yeah, I think that's why so many game sequels and whatnot will go to a different location for their sequel, too.
Exactly. Because it gives them more freedom to work. Like, you could absolutely make, as an example, let me think. Actually, a perfect example, Pokemon Black and White, and then Black 2, White 2. Like, you could absolutely make a direct sequel to a title work, but you need to justify why you're doing it.
Yeah.
That's the big clincher, and that's also where you have to be really creative with the writing, because you can't just tell people, oh, this changed, or this character is now not, acting this way. Why? You have to explain the why. Otherwise, people are going to be kind of caught in this developmental whiplash, trying to figure out why, what things changed, and their attention's completely distracted from the story you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
That's just my take on that, anyway. That's why I really loved how they did Breath of the Wild like that. And a lot of people say, Breath of the Wild was, not Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. A lot of people argue, its story was mediocre and whatnot, but that's fine. Like, I can understand, looking back on it. Yeah, there's a couple of plot points they probably could have developed just a little bit better than others. But the inner workings, essentially, as to how they wrote the world building helped kind of justify a lot of that. And even though they at some points, I eventually even started using the upheaval as like an excuse. Just saying, oh, the upheaval is what making things go kind of awry here in the cities and ruins. I get it, like, yeah, you can overuse it and people will not really think twice about it, but you gotta get creative with it.
Yeah.
That's just my take, though.
I think it's kind of funny, honestly, that they were able to fit really any story into Tears of the Kingdom specifically that was able to hold up to all the crazy things that the player's able to do in that game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, let's be real. Miyamoto knew what he was doing when he gave us the freedom to build things.
Yeah.
he knew,
yeah.
He had to have known what he was doing. Like, there's no way he couldn't have. There's absolutely no way. What I'm thinking. This. That carried over. Honestly, my big question now, as I'm putting on, on the topic of Zelda, is how are they going to top that with the next Zelda title?
That is something I've been wondering about. Like with the unbelievable levels of freedom and like creative expression and like the massive open world and everything. I was thinking, like, where could they possibly go from here?
Now they did. Now Miyamoto was reported to have said that Breath of the Wild and ultimately Tears of the Kingdom essentially is a new minimum standard. Like they're going to be essentially using their engine as a starting go-to going forward. So more than likely, I suspect that any Zelda that we see going forward is going to have relatively close to the same kind of features and freedoms that those two games gave us, even if they choose to step them back and limit them.
Yeah, I agree. I think people are going to expect that at this point. Like, if they tried to release a new Zelda now and you didn't have, maybe not like full access to like the Ultra Hand and everything, but like
right.
If you didn't have like the different like Sheikah glyph abilities and things like that, and just that level of being able to manipulate the world, everyone will be like, well, why can't we do all the stuff that we were doing in Tears of the Kingdom?
Well, actually, let me offer a counterpoint to that. Is at the minimum, keep the open world. Very minimal.
Yeah.
But, like, just use that as your base template. Now, as one idea, hear me out, Ocarina of Time, but with Tears of the Kingdom's engine.
Oh, jeez.
or as another example, Wind Waker. Wind Waker with that engine. Like, you could take a lot of the older titles and still keep them linear, like they were originally, but give them a whole new level of freedom and exploration with the open world mechanic.
And then thinking about the like increased focus on exploration and everything, the thought just popped into my head, like, how incredible would it be to do, like, maybe not strictly a remake, but doing like Wind Waker, but being able to explore either a similar region or maybe like
Beyond the Great Sea.
Like yeah, or even maybe depending on if they go forward, like maybe like see what that region's like. If they figure out some way to undo, the Great Flood that happened and everything, like what the rest of Hyrule would look like after that event.
Actually, have you heard about the Hyrule Unflooded project?
Mm-mm.
So it's a fan group that's been coming together, and they've been working on, and it's not anything that's canonical, I'm just gonna say, because they're adding bits of here and a little bits of there, and if you compare it to the official timeline, some stuff is going to be kind of out of place. But what they're doing is that they're essentially using Wind Waker, but they're draining the ocean.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking, because just like the amount of like just places you could explore and like just all the weird and interesting stuff that you'd be able to get into with like that world setup just seems like it'd be a lot of fun to mess around in.
Right. And I've not been actively keeping up with the project, but a couple of the things that they have been working on are things like I think they said one point in the equivalent to the Gerudo Desert, they were going to throw the Arbiter's Grounds in there. I think at another point they were including Lon Ranch, obviously. Essentially, they're trying to recreate a good chunk of the template with Ocarina of Time, but then they're filling a lot of the holes with other pieces that were just kind of being thrown in there, such as with, like I said, Lon Ranch, Arbiter's Grounds, even if they didn't exist until far later. And I can see where they're going with it, but it still feels slightly jarring, at least to me in that respect, because, you know, there canonically is a Hyrule under the Great Sea, but at that point, you kind of have to wonder or justify, you know, why is this here when it's not even in this timeline? So, like, if you're going to use the Arbiter's Grounds, why is it located in that timeline when it's actually not even in it to begin with? So that's kind of what I'm wondering, is how they're going to justify it, either with like in-game lore in the final product, or talk about it later on why they included them and such, because there most likely will be a reason for it. Just don't know what it is yet.
I feel like they did kind of get into maybe a bit of a precarious position when it came to stuff with the timeline when we got into Breath of the Wild in the first place, because if I'm not mistaken, people were looking at it, and Breath of the Wild doesn't really fit neatly on any of the like original timelines that we knew about.
Because Miyamoto actually came forward with that, and especially especially in the last year with Tears of the Kingdom, and he basically stated outright that it doesn't fit in any timeline because it's not in any timeline. The way he explained it, Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are essentially I don't want to use the term a soft reset, but it's essentially its own completely independent standalone timeline. It has zero weight or influence whatsoever on the originals. So that's why they can put in elements of Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time, or use the armors, the weapons, because they technically didn't have any weight or existence in the original.
Which is why we have Zoras and Rito in the same world.
Exactly. That's another reason that he explained it, is because it's a soft reset. They can create a whole new justification and timeline that explains why they exist at the same time, when in other timelines, one didn't exist because they developed from the other.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really creative how they did that, and that's honestly one reason why I'm okay with that answer.
Yeah, I think that is probably... I mean, really, I think that's the only answer, honestly. Like, I think any other thing wouldn't really have worked. Just because if you were trying to, force it to fit in one of the other timelines, there's so many things that would be inconsistent if you tried to put it in any one of them.
Right. Exactly.
It kind of has to be in its own space.
Exactly. And it's nice that Miyamoto finally came forward and said it. Because a lot of people were freaking out for the longest time. Where does this fit? Or it has to fit here. And he'd be like, well, you're not wrong. Maybe. And just not tell him.
Yeah.
And then finally he came forward and said, yeah, it's its own timeline, guys. You can stop freaking out.
But yeah, thinking about that whole, the idea of the unflooded Hyrule thing, and then thinking about what we were talking about before, a lot of important locations, if you were to take, the Wind Waker's version of Hyrule and, it wasn't flooded, there'd be an awful lot of locations that were still really high up. Exactly. But that seems like it'd be perfect for, like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom style gameplay.
Exactly. And that's one reason why, well, like I said, they're still super early on in their project, so they're not making any notable headway super fast, because they have to, of course, model all of it. And they're literally, hand modeling everything as they go. So there's a lot of massively open blank spaces where there's, nothing there. And you can see the skybox of the ocean underneath because there's nothing there. But it's a very slow ongoing project, but the way they put it together is it's coming along. I definitely recommend checking it out and see what you think.
Yeah, I love looking into stuff like that, just fan projects, like works of passion type stuff like that. So I'll definitely have to check that out and see what they have going on with it.
What I'm honestly really looking forward to seeing, if you've not kept up to date with it, is Zelda Indigo.
I'm not familiar.
Okay, so Zelda Indigo is it's a ROM hack for Ocarina of Time. So it uses OOT's engine, but it basically turns the entirety of the game on its head. So you have a completely new story, completely new mechanics, completely new monsters, new dungeons and everything. And it's just so wild the things that they put in it. Like for instance, one example, the enemies they haven't that they introduced are pack hunters, and they'll usually come in hordes of like 8 or 9, 8 to 10 at once when you encounter them, and they're sound sensitive. So like the second you go to attack one, suddenly the entire horde is on you.
Oh jeez.
And they're also extremely agile pack hunters. So like the second you start the fight in the encounter, they are all on top of you. So you have to figure out how to incorporate the fight without A, alerting the entire horde that you're there, or B, have some kind of item in your inventory that you can use to counter and throw off the pack mentality.
Yeah, that was the first thing that popped in my head when you said that. I was like, well, what if you threw a bomb down, like over near where they were? Like,
well, actually,
I imagine that would distract them.
What the developer suggested heavily, and ties into one of the other new core mechanics he was introducing, is the elemental system. Here's kind of what I'm thinking so far.
I'm really liking this so far.
Honestly, it's coming together pretty nice. You still have to figure out a model ID and a name for it, though. That's the big catch.
So, I don't know if I'm using DeepL correctly. I just pulled up the basic thing, but if I'm not mistaken, it looks like Astromagus is exactly 8 characters.
Ooh, we could do that then. So we could do Astromagus. Let me think. What could be a model ID for this one, though?
I don't really know how the model numbers really work in
So
in Matter
for the most part, it's kind of a as I'm checking some stuff here. It can kind of allude to a lot of different things. Like, for instance, with Metsubi, his model ID is KBT, which stands for Kabuto, which is the kind of rhino beetle that it's based off of, or Hercules beetle. In other cases, in like the case of Pepper Cat, it is CAT, cat. In other more unique ones, you can think of something that kind of alludes to it. I draw this a little bit because I didn't catch on the other side. So there's lots of different ways that you can do it. Or, depending on the type of model ID, it could even have dual meaning. So, for instance, I actually designed an Orimeda a while ago named Ignis Dragon. And it is, as the name implies, a fire dragon that can transform that has an alternative mode into a full-blown flying fire-breathing dragon. But the problem is FDR that I used for Fire Dragon already existed under another model named Greed, who is a Fossil Dragon FDR. So in that case, I could use it. I could still use FDR and designate it as Fire Dragon, but with his model ID, I had to label him as 01 because a FDR 00 already existed. So what we could try is if we wanted to do something like Magus, MAG. I think MAG already does exist, so it would have to be a 01. But essentially, whole explanation short, is a model ID kind of is a 3-letter designation for a theme or a motif of the design. So we could do, say, like, WZR, Wizard, SCR, Sorcerer, Magus, MAG... lots of different ways that we could take it.
One that popped into my head was
I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. There we go.
Okay. But yeah, the thing that popped in my head was we could do MAH for Maho.
Huh, that's right, Maho. The Japanese term for magic. That's right, we could do that. MAH. Take a look here, see if we can play around with that. Let me move my tablet over here for a second while I'm letting us sit there pretty. I'm gonna pull up DeepL and kind of follow along behind you. So let me see. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, Astromages is 8 characters. We can absolutely do that. So we could do...
That name kind of has a nice flow to it. I kind of think maybe we should use that, especially since we found out that it actually fits.
That's what I'm thinking.
Character length-wise.
Right, so what I'm thinking is we can do MAH0 Astromagus and do it that way. So then we just have to think of part names. That's the other thing. Is obviously, with mix and match, the parts are going to have their own designated names. So what I'm thinking... let me think. What are some ideas we could do for names? Let me try... We could do Conjure Hand for the left arm. We could do Twisted Staff for the right hand. Unless you have something else in mind that could also work.
I'm not sure yet.
Okay, so we'll still think of some tentative names.
I like Conjure Hand, honestly. The staff one I'm not completely sure of yet. But...
Right. I'm trying to think of some other ideas. What would I want to name the head?
Do the part names usually reference more like the design or their function?
Either.
Okay.
It can be literally anything. Like for instance, Blossomales is literally just evil head, evil arm, evil hand, and evil leg. So there's some that are just really, really easy, and then there are others where they have some like really creative theme to them. Like as an example, there's one design that was introduced in Metarod 7. His name is Turbulent. He was a RYM0, but the way he was designed and his motif was of Sakamoto Ryoma, who is a notable historical figure in Japan's Bakumatsu period. And all of his part names are actually references to quotes that he was written to have said during his time as a political figure. For instance, his part names are Your Heart Must Be, Worry Over Clutch, Yoshiyuki Mustn't, and As the Pacific. And basically, all of those translate to a phrase he was quoted to have said, which translates, you mustn't worry, your heart must be like the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, wow.
And they translate Yoshiyuki Mustn't as the name of the sword that Sakamoto Ryoma was to have, that actually owned. So you can go either way ultimately with naming, naming. You can be really creative and give it references, or you can do something really simple. There's really no wrong answer here, as long as it can essentially fit under 8 characters.
Oh, so the parts also have that limit. I see.
Correct.
Okay.
We could do... Hold on. We could do Crescent Cap for the head.
That does have a ring to it.
And then maybe for the legs... Enough. Okay, there we go. Let me think. What could we do? We could maybe do something like... Mage robes? Mage robe?
Yeah, just because I was fixated on that one for the design, I'm kind of wondering if we could work the leg ability in there somehow.
Anything do.
I think a lot of the things I'm thinking would probably be kind of long.
About we could use like I have a couple ideas. Maybe something like essence robes, kind of like an allusion to mana.
Yeah.
See if that'll fit.
I was dropping stuff into Deep L. I threw out like restore robe or something like that.
So what I'm thinking, what we have so far that we're sitting at is Astro Mages as the tentative name, with parts of Crescent Cap, Twisted Staff, Conjure Hand, and Essence Robes. Or if we don't want to use Twisted Staff, maybe if I can, you can do Magic Staff. Just go simple, go easy. Mint Rod. Only 6 characters. Let's split it. Honestly, I'd say let's do it. Mint Rod. I mean, I'm okay with it. I don't mind.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Check
Fits the character limit.
Like a couple other things. Hold on. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so let's expand my... I seriously gotta organize my art folder in here, everything I have in it.
No, yeah.
I just have so many final PNGs and projects and everything, and I just never bother organizing it.
Yeah, I know that feel.
Let's see. There it is. Double check what the... Actually pull up one of my originals just so I can keep it uniform. With canvas size. I'm particular about that. I just want to expand my canvas. Hide. Will give us some more room to work. Spell correctly. So. Oh, right. Wrong one here. There we go. Let's have some fun with some extra colors on before as I'm working on putting this together.
I was just thinking that the visor probably needed some love.
Yeah, the way I usually do things is I run a flat coat on things first, and then I'll go back and refine it with light dark shading.
Yeah.
This one. I like that to kind of give it that glassy look.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing, just adding like the shading there and the two lines for like the reflective effect just adds so much to the visual.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now comes the fun part. It's kind of giving it a little bit of depth here with a light source.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I don't think I had a chance to ask earlier when I was kind of asking about who you are. How long have you been? Did I ask initially how long you were doing the like how long you've been doing the content creation?
Yeah, I mentioned it was back right around the start of the VTuber boom.
About 2020, roughly.
Yeah.
Honestly, kind of crazy how many people just jumped on that bandwagon, since when they were locked inside.
Yeah. It really was just kind of a perfect storm of things that happened.
Like, it absolutely was.
Yeah, just like all of a sudden everyone is, stuck inside, has so much more free time, and can't do any of the things that they usually do. And right when everybody was at their most bored, suddenly a new form of entertainment pops up.
Oh yeah, definitely. Honestly, you're right. A perfect storm is a good way to describe it. What's funny is a lot of people say, "Oh, it's just a fad. It'll disappear." I don't think it's going anywhere, my guy.
It's going somewhere. It's going upward.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're literally using VTubers. Businesses using VTubers as mascots now because everybody's on the craze with it because that's what they're into. I mean, let's be real. The fact that even a lot of major sports got involved with it. They had Kuura
the
singing one of them, and she basically delivered him to victory, like some battle siren.
Yeah, I think that one had to be like a big wake-up call for any corporate types that weren't sure about how they felt about VTubers.
No, it's honestly hilarious too because a lot of people are making fun at him now, saying, "Listen, enjoy your win now because your battle goddess is gone." Other people going, "No, she's not." Because they've already kind of found who she is now.
Yeah, I was going to say something about that.
Didn't take him long. But then again, I don't think she was being super subtle about it either.
No, she was dropping some pretty blatant hints, honestly.
I mean, now he's got to wait for when she debuts, whenever that is.
Yeah. Hopefully it's when she's ready, because, I mean, it sounded like there was this...
Well, according to what I heard from Kuura's initial announcement, was there was actually a lot of reasons she was considering graduating, and part of it was just the fact that she just got too popular too quickly and she couldn't handle the stress of it all.
Yeah.
And I get being a big VTuber, you're gonna have that attention on you. That's just a given. But she was technically one of their most successful VTubers to date.
I mean, she essentially became like the face of the entire industry. Like, I mean,
hands down.
That's the thing. Not just Hololive, but like VTubers, like as a concept.
Oh yeah, that's not even a question.
Yeah. So yeah, I imagine the amount of pressure must have been unbelievable when it comes to something like that.
Oh yeah, and especially with the whole thing about the since Cover Corp went public and
Yeah.
for stocks. That definitely was not probably not the smartest move on their part.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, like, if you look at how many graduations happened since they made that announcement.
I was literally about to say, yeah, they had like 7 graduations within like 6 months, all of them within like 6 months of each other.
Yeah. And at least as far as the history I've followed, that's unprecedented for them.
It's also very bad looking.
Yeah.
Now, to Yagu's credit, I did actually see an article that interviewed him, and he's not completely absolving himself of the blame, obviously, but he at least was coming forward and saying, listen, ever since the company went public, there's not really a lot I personally can do as a person, because if public majority says they'd rather have singing, dancing idols than streaming idols, then that's what they're gonna get, because the company believes that's where the money is. Yep. So it just kind of sucks, and that's just and the ladies that want to stick around either need to get with the program or they need to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword with the whole corpo VTuber thing. You're either in it or you're not.
Yeah. The usual thing that happens with stuff like that. All hail the almighty shareholder.
Oh yeah, that's definitely how it is.
Yeah. Thinking about it, I mean, I'm sure there's still all sorts of crazy stuff going on, but I was just thinking about it. After all the turmoil and everything going on at Hololive, I realized I haven't heard anything from Niji Sanji lately, so I'm wondering if things are just still completely on fire over there, or...
Honestly, I think a lot of people just kind of forgot about him.
Yeah.
Which is entirely justified, because
what
I've heard of how they treat their talents, that absolutely is not okay. Like, that is several lawsuits waiting to happen, even with contracts.
Yeah, they absolutely shot themselves in the foot with how they did that.
Yeah, I mean, like, the fact that they basically terminated Selene because she was going over their heads and doing things she wanted to because they wouldn't. You can't blame her for it, because when she went to go commission art pieces, for her character as such, for merchandise, the reason why it was such a pain in the neck is because she was trying to make sure that the artist got paid, but the way Niji wanted to do it is they had a very specific channel for Selene to do it. They had to basically send Niji an invoice, and they would pay the artist. But Niji wasn't doing their part of paying the artist, for several weeks on end. So Selene would literally just pay them herself, and then she would take the invoice money as compensation.
Yeah.
And based on what I did hear going further, supposedly there was a lot of very clique mentalities in Niji. You were either really well loved by their big talents, and they greenlit and fast-tracked everything you wanted to do, or they didn't like you and you got nothing done, or got nothing at all because they kept red taping you.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember hearing a lot of, treatment, of person A versus treatment of person B kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. And I'm honestly like, but why, though? Like, I understand if you're clanmates, in the same generation, I get it, but, why do you need to sabotage someone else's success when literally the only reason both of you are in the gig to begin with is because of the company?
Yeah.
Just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, there were a lot of really basically just toxic things going on over there. But yeah, I just kind of noticed, I was like, oh yeah, they haven't been in the news lately, so it just makes me wonder
I think they're staying low on purpose.
Yeah.
Probably the smarter move, honestly. Especially with the whole Cinder case, too. No one's heard from Cinder since she put her... since she put her Google Docu out, and part of it's legally the smart thing to do, because if you're out there streaming or talking, it's only going to be adding fuel to the fire. Whereas if you're starving the people that are trying to find content about you, it's going to fade out before long. As much as people want to keep it perpetuated, but it's probably the smarter thing that she does disappear for a while and lay low. The only question people are having is if she's going to graduate and then just come back as someone else later, or or possibly she's just going to pick up where she left off and just hope people forgot. And they're not, obviously. They're never going to forget this.
Yeah.
This was just way too drastic, and the fact that Shy Lily got as brutal as she did, that you're never coming back from that if you made her mad. And
yeah, like everything I've heard about her is that she's like definitely one of the nicer, like fairer people.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that according to everyone I've spoken to, she's one of the most wholesome streamers on the internet.
Yeah,
as chaotic as she is as a gremlin.
Yeah,
but that's just that's like you said. That's what I've heard too. That she's one of the most wholesome on the internet. So if you made her mad, you screwed up big royally. And I read her response too. Like it was just brutal. Like there was no recovery from that one. She basically stabbed, twisted the knife, and guaranteed you didn't move before she pulled it out.
Yeah. But she had receipts too. That was the thing. It wasn't just like lashing out. It was like, here's what's wrong with this thing that you said. What's wrong with this thing that you did.
Yeah,
here's proof about this and that.
Absolutely.
So,
like it was 100% justified with what happened, and I'm glad that they're bouncing back from that because it was massive. The people that were affected by that.
Yeah.
And it really sucks too that that it came down to that.
Mm-hmm.
All I can really hope for, I mean, a lot of people say that she just needs to be removed. She just needs to graduate and just disappear because it's really hard to come back from that. I get it. Like, I understand. I'm mad too. Honestly, I absolutely would be in that situation if someone did that to me. And I probably would be with the mob crowd at first and tell them, yeah, graduate, disappear, and do not come back. And but the problem is, as well, graduating in the VTuber space isn't necessarily somebody disappearing. It means they lay low for about 6 months and then come back as somebody completely different.
Yeah, they just rebrand and
just hope and pray that someone doesn't connect the dots.
Yeah.
Which most of the time they do, but still.
But I mean, I guess all we can really do is hope at that point that, maybe they actually learn something and, change their behavior when they come back.
Yes, that's the big lesson here. And that's what I think some of the people that are trying to stay neutral on it are, even Tectone, because even Tectone said, listen, I tried to wait until she said her side, but it was just, it wasn't even an apology bad. Even he was ragging about it. But
yeah,
the only big lesson that people can take out of that is if she wants to bounce back at all, she needs to basically take this as a hard lesson with however far down the ladder it knocked her, and she needs to rebuild slowly and just be a better person.
Yeah,
because that kind of betrayal, it's you're not going to earn that kind of trust back for a very long time.
Yeah, but it is doable. Like if learn and move on and actively work to try to be a better person after something like that.
Like it's not impossible. You can do it, but you have a lot of ground to catch up on if you're going to.
Yeah.
So that's it. Only time will tell, really, if that's going to be anything that happens.
Yeah, we've had far too many stories where that same sort of thing has happened. Someone's disappeared, reappeared under a different alias, and then just went right back to their scummy behavior.
Oh, perfect example. Rushia.
Oh, yeah.
I was about to say, you know what happened with Rushia, right?
Yeah.
And what a mess. It got so bad, she rebranded when she came on with Vishojo as a Mike Neko. And people discovered real quick, hey, it's Rushia, because she rages just like her. And then people realize just how bad it is because Mike Neko is also getting in a lot of major trouble. And apparently she was in the middle of a really nasty divorce with her husband, Mafu, of all people, because that part actually was legit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, people said, oh, he's not anything, he's just a clanmate. No, apparently he was actually her husband. According to what I heard, anyway. And apparently it got so nasty, like she started doing things to their, to the pet out of spite. She was, trying to, being difficult during the divorce hearings, and apparently it was just one thing after the other. And people are like, man, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy what happens when people crash out like that too.
Yeah. I do, on some level, kind of count my blessings when it comes to that stuff. It's like being a small indie is, obviously rough, like we were talking about before, but at the very least, like, we don't end up getting just pulled into crazy things like that, at least not under normal circumstances.
Yeah, you're not caught in any of the drama because you're too small to be involved to begin with.
Yeah. So
It's
yeah,
got
so
pros and cons.
it's one of the times that it's sort of an upside to be on the outside looking in.
Oh yeah, I definitely understand.
It's one of my personal goals as a content creator. I don't know if I'll be able to meet it. Who knows? We'll have to see. But honestly, if I'm able to go my whole content creation career without ever writing a twit longer, that would be the goal for me.
You know, at that point, that'd be VTuber goals any % hard mode, no Google Docs.
Yeah. Yeah. So that one might be unreasonable, but
bonus challenge: don't write a Google Docie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're basically interchangeable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what happens if you have to write a Google Docie? Nobody trusts you anymore.
Yeah. Well, then it does depend on what you put in there, but...
Yeah, but still.
I'm just not a fan of drama to the point that I just like to go as long as possible, if not, the entire time I'm doing this, without needing to do that if I possibly can.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't want to go causing drama and doing everything.
Yeah.
But if you have to address something because it just got so out of hand, then be quick, be simple about it, don't exaggerate the point, and just carry on.
Oh, of course, yeah. But yeah, like, kind of tying in with what I was saying before, it's like, my goal is to be, sharing, fun and enjoyable experiences with people. So, drama kind of runs counter to that as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's nothing wrong with saying that you don't enjoy some drama every now and then, but... Especially if they deserve it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, for instance, the whole SAG after strike, everyone that was siding with that initially is crashing out pretty bad. And kind of realizing, it's nowhere near what you hoped that it would be. Like, apparently I was reading that Erica, who is the voice for Venti, was saying that she wanted to come back sooner, but apparently she was getting threats from SAG if she were to, contact Hoyo and start voicing again. And she apparently finally got around to it and said that she finally did get back and start voicing Venti again. But she was too late for the current event, and they'd be adding her post-update. So she's back. People are really happy that she's back, but she did miss a lot of stuff. And people are hoping that this will be a start that a lot of the other big ones will start coming back too. That were not part of SAG or just kind of sticking with it out of solidarity. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
Honestly, all I know is as far as Honkai Star Rail is concerned, I uninstalled the EN voice patch until they put them all back in. Which sucks, because honestly, I really do like a lot of those voices. Let's be real, hearing Boot Hill scream Muddle Fudger at people is hilarious. This doesn't have the same weight in JP.
Yeah. Side note, I'm really liking this shading and highlight pass you're doing.
I gotta kind of give it that little emission look.
I was thinking, do we want to put like a glow on the moon part for the left hand?
I'm thinking about it. I might. I honestly might. Honestly, it is a pretty good idea. And I was thinking about it the whole time when I was drawing it. I'm like, I wonder if I should put a glow effect on this. You know what? Why not? Pick some little. Okay.
Feel like it definitely reads just like more strongly as like a conjured like weapon at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's blend it. You know, I dig it.
I absolutely like this. I like this a lot.
I dig this. Alright, so now switch stuff around. So, put my keyboard to the side real quick. Let me see what we're doing out on time so far. About 2.5 hours. We're making good time. Astro, make this. You say on here. Hold on, let me get a fresh tab. Okay, we had crescent cap. Shrink that just a little bit. Crescent cap. Let's make the hat the heavy part. Heavy. Mint rod. What do you think? Should we make the staff or the conjured moons the other heavy part? Because we have two we gotta distribute.
What's the difference between a heavy part and a normal part again?
So typically heavy parts will have higher stats. Usually they'll hit a little harder, they have higher armor, usually higher heating and cooling. At the cost that they do require the legs to be able to support them.
Maybe I'll be self-indulgent here. Let's make the mint rod the heavy part.
That works. Conjure hand. Then essence robes.
You know, I just realized something else design-wise, looking at this. If the cape part for the legs that we have on the back there, if that curves outward, then we'd still have that crescent shape just on the opposite end.
And what I'm going to do is, when I finish putting this together and I know how much space I have left, I'm going to do kind of like some concept sketches in white, just to kind of show like what the hat looks like from the side, you know, what the back, you know, what the profile for the cape looks like, you know, just some extra pieces to kind of help it stand apart. I'll do. What do we have on here? Anti-CG. I might end up. Space it all out first. CG, hyper break. We had cross shock, and it had shape memory. No, shrink. The problem with the gray that I typically use as my background blends with my cursor.
Yeah, I can see that.
Makes it so hard to keep up to date with it. Oops.
It's been a long time since I've seen anybody really mess with those, but you should totally do like a custom cursor.
I've thought about it, but I just don't think about, you know, I don't actually mess with it often enough to really like justify it.
Yeah.
Usually the symbol they designate floaters.
Mm.
Something like this. That color. Then what we can do for the remaining bits here. All the room that I need to work with. Let me reposition here just real quick. Hold on, there we go. Okay, so what we want to do. Shape of the tab. What are some things that we want to kind of clarify the designs on in particular? Like maybe the shoulder pauldron. We don't want to do the hat. We want to do the back of the cape. Anything else that you think we should probably emphasize or kind of draw from another angle, or you think that's kind of it?
Maybe the like mustache crest deal, just because like I think the angle for that is probably going to be something we need to clarify.
Probably, yeah. So I'll add that on the profile head sketch then.
Hmm.
Not quite. Sorry about just a little bit more. There. So cap. I'm gonna tilt the cap back just a little. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
Actually do a star at the tail end too, because I like that original idea I had.
Yeah, I like that one too. You know, the other thing I like about the design that we settled on for the mustache thing is that it also looks like a glyph or something.
You're right, honestly, especially with that little bit I added at the bottom.
Mm-hmm, yeah. But I think that's kind of perfect, honestly.
Stem the eye visor stands out. Honestly, the one other thing I really like about character design is kind of like thinking about what it would look like from separate angles.
Definitely. I realized I went silent there. I'm like just looking at you working on the individual parts and everything. Because, I understand this stuff from a, drawing and design perspective, but, I don't know nearly as much about like the, meta raw portion of it.
Honestly, that's 100% understandable. That's actually one reason why I put the why I did my What is Metarot stream, where I broke all of that down and talked about it and kind of explained everything.
Yeah,
because not a lot of people know, all the extra history bits, the fact that there was a timeline, all the different technological advancements that went into it. Not a lot of people know that because it wasn't talked about or mentioned in the few English games that we did get. So yeah. I wanted to make a goal to inform the community, and I had some guests with me, and I did What is Metarot. And honestly, even to this day, I even said it on my anniversary stream, I said it honestly was one of the biggest things that I would say is a crowning glory for my channel. Like, if I were to suddenly graduate and not do content creation anymore, it'd be one of the one things that I would say defines my channel. Like, it'd be the one thing people go to my channel to look for. Kind of get creative with this real quick from a profile. Kind of like that, essentially.
Yeah.
Actually, I need to make the angle a little more graceful. Hang on.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah. There you go.
So, try it. There we go. That's a little better.
Yeah, because then we have the kind of implied, like, continuing shape that runs through the whole body.
That one. If I can draw the mustache a little better. That over. One of the biggest struggles I have when I work on rulers and such is not drawing on it. I can't tell you how many times I do that accidentally, and I have to go back and do it all over again.
I think
apparently, if you copy cut or cut paste, it actually saves without you having to redraw it over. I discovered that by accident. I'm like, huh.
Thinking about that, I mean, maybe you remember to, maybe you don't, but ideally, couldn't you just lock the ruler?
I thought of. Honestly, you're right. I could. I just don't think about things like that.
Nah. It's something that I definitely need to do more often too, just with art in general. It's like, yeah, that's a reference. I should lock the reference layer so I don't go back to drawing on it on accident.
Honestly, I kind of forget you can do that half the time.
I mean, there's so many just like functions and just different things to keep in mind when it comes to art programs.
Especially
like,
if you use different ones or have to convert between programs.
Oh yeah, and then trying to remember, what X function is called in Y program because it's different.
Honestly, it took me like 6 months just to learn CSP before I was actually able to start drawing stuff casually.
Oh gosh, I remember the first time I opened up CSP and just was terrified at all the in the default configuration you have all the drawers of like different like options and tabs and everything.
Yep, and you have to personalize all your hotkeys and your comfort points.
Yeah, so I mean, really, I'm still not done with that process. It's still an ongoing thing for me, but I've gotten to the point that I can at least do, like the things that I want to do. I'm sure there's probably better ways I could do it still hidden in the program somewhere.
Oh yeah, obviously. That's the thing about the learning though, is the fact that there are other things you can do, and you can install like custom brushes and personalize experience a little bit more to be what you're looking for. There's always ways to do it, which is what makes it great.
Thinking about it, connecting with something we were talking about earlier, I guess it's sort of like the streaming thing. Everybody's ends up being unique.
That's a little better. Final step. Hold on, let me see where we're at. Let's see. Do I see a wizard? Yes, you see a wizard. It's a space wizard, a star wizard. Most important part of any art piece. Alright, I'd say that about does it.
I think we did a pretty awesome job with this, frankly.
Honestly, I dig it. It came out really nice, and we were able to touch on a lot of creative things that made it stand out as like a wizard without, encroaching on another design or feel, but still come with something that makes it stand apart.
Yeah, I think we got a very original design here. I think the silhouette should stand out pretty well against a lot of the other, designs and whatnot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And honestly, with a kit like what it has, makes it relatively powerful as well in a lot of different ways, but something that doesn't require it to actually have a charge built in order to make use of it. Like, for instance, anti-CG doesn't require his own charge at all. It's reliant on the enemies. Hyper Break is something he can use right from turn 1, and gets better if he's fighting something with weight. And Cross Shock he can use right from turn 1 immediately. And then if he does end up getting pounded pretty bad, he can just use Shape Memory to equalize his HP. So, honestly, lots of different ways that you could approach this design, and it came out really nice.
And for me, this kind of, I guess that would have been another reason why I picked this. I always tend to gravitate towards like hybrid type characters in games where you have different roles and whatnot. So
kind of like mixed, kind of like a mixed class, multi-class.
Yeah, or just a single class that fulfills multiple roles, like a spell sword, or someone who has.
That's the big charm to Metarot, though, is the fact that it's basically customizable like your RPG, but you can mix the pieces relative to what you need. So, for instance, if you realize that your dominant DPS needs a support part to make it better, you can build around it and give him a support part that'll trade a little bit of your DPS for a boost. But sometimes that boost invested makes your DPS even higher. So there's always lots of different ways to do it, and it's always great to come up with different ways. That's the mix and match of the parts, too, which always paid off.
Yeah, and I mean, that, at least for me, that's always been the appeal for this sort of thing. Like, just being able to, like, sit and, like, tinker with this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, well, this build works, but what if I change this out so that it could work better in this situation or against this kind of opponent?
Oh, 100%. Actually, there is remind me when we go off, I'll show you when we go off live. There's actually a video I was watching recently of one of my Japanese buddies that does Metarot gameplays as well. He was doing gameplay of Metarot Duel's final boss, Taekondero, the fortress type. And the build he used was exclusively for speed and recharge, and he only had one combat part equipped.
Oh, wow.
And it worked. Because he was pumping everything and ensuring he could use that as often as possible, and it worked.
Oh, okay.
It was well executed. I'll show that to you after we hop off. But yeah, honestly, I think Astromagus came out really well. It's a very unique design, like I said, stands apart. It's completely original, and a very unique kit that makes it fairly user friendly, honestly, too, because it doesn't have a lot of conditions that require finesse to use. And that's honestly something that a lot of the newer designs have, is they have a damage condition where you have to attack them from the front, attack them from the back, you need a charge in order to use it effectively. There's lots of different things you have to keep in mind. And granted, they all come as part of, learning RPG classes and such, but there's just a charm to being able to use something right from turn 1, especially as a new player or someone who's just starting out, without having to learn all of that immediately. But, honestly, yeah, I had a lot of fun. Came out with another really unique design. That's honestly why I like doing these, is I don't know what we're designing until we're actually done. Because that's why I tell people, don't show me your results until showtime. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, anytime, you're, like, exchanging ideas, like, bouncing design concepts back and forth between people, like, I mean, almost every time, you're going to end up with something, unique and probably interesting.
Right.
I think we came up with something pretty fun here. I like how this turned out a lot.
Yeah, I like it. It came out really nice. And I think, especially with a lot of folks that like those RPG wizards or wizard classes, I think this would definitely find a very popular spot among teams, even as mixed parts, if they realize they'd rather just use one or two pieces. Lots of very unique things. But, and honestly, coming up on just shy of 3 hours too. That's we honestly can't. We make great time with coming up with something completely original, which is always great as well. But honestly, yeah, I'd say that's a really good That's a good place to kind of start winding down and call it here as well, because
Mhm.
we're I'd say we're done. We came with a unique design and we're both happy with it. That's what's most important.
Yeah.
But before I do wrap us up here officially, Mint, do you have any parting words, anything that you want that you want to possibly plan for, or anything that you're possibly cooking up or want to try cooking up eventually?
I like I was saying before, I still don't really have a whole lot going on, like as far as big plans or anything. Uh, Honestly, I'm just trying to get back into the swing of just streaming again and just having fun with it. Um, so I don't know if I can like plug a little bit. Uh,
Plug all
just
you want.
uh, if if you guys had fun here and want to listen to me ramble about whatever game I'm playing, feel free to stop by. Love to have you. Um, I'll most likely just be vibing with whatever game I'm playing.
That's always the
Honestly, that
best. That's always the best way to do it as well.
yeah. My supposed claim to fame is that I'm very difficult to tilt. So
Ooh.
that's part of why
Oh. Oh, here. Oh, there's an idea then. Just make a rage stream. Like how far can it go without breaking a controller? You can do that during like when you play like Night Rain or something.
yeah.
Just say rage challenge. Don't break my controller, and give the chat instructions to try find everything they can, no matter how controversial it is, within reason, obviously,
Yeah.
within reason, to just try to make you angry.
Yeah, I mean it would be fun to see how far I could push that idea. I mean, if nothing else, with the way that works, it would make for fun content.
Oh yeah, definitely. It turned rage bait into a whole new definition. I think people would enjoy that. But yeah, see, hey, there you go, an idea for a future stream that you could look into. But
Yeah.
Mint, it was an absolute pleasure and a treat to have you on the MNN with me. We came up with a really unique design here with Astromagus, and definitely got to coordinate something else sometime in the future.
Oh, absolutely.
I know we're currently kind of dancing around with the idea of wanting to do like a kind of like a Tinker's collaboration at some point. While I'm kind of putting some things together and probing around for maybe one or two other people for that, while I'm kind of figuring out the details. I just kind of want to get through June first, since I have so many things backed up back to back. I want to do it. I think it'd be awesome if we did something like that. Got to coordinate for that at some point. Get a couple friends involved. Would love to have you back on the MNN for that.
Absolutely. I had a ton of fun, honestly. I was I'm not gonna lie, I was absolutely panicking for probably the last like 4 or 5 hours before stream. But this was a lot of fun. Once I actually got out here and everything, like relaxed, we got to talk design and all kinds of stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Once you get
Uh
into it, it's a whole lot more comfortable.
yeah. Uh, and I was just going to say about the collab thing. Yeah, I definitely want to make sure we're out of your extra busy period before we do that.
Oh yes, I'm probably not gonna be looking at that until sometime until after July. After June into July at some point when I can finally breathe.
Yeah.
Because like I told you before I hopped on before we went to Showtime, I didn't realize how close all my collabs were back to back until I actually scheduled them out. I'm like, oh great, they're all within like a day of each other, and I'm gonna the week after my 4-year anniversary, no less. I was
Yeah.
hoping to take a break all through that week, and suddenly, nope, you got 4 collabs scheduled. And you didn't realize it. I'm like, dang it. So I'm just rolling with it. But honestly, I had a lot of fun. We came up with something
Mhm.
fun. Every single one of these art streams is something completely different every time, and I'm
Mhm.
excited for that. So
Yeah.
again, Mint, thank you so much for stopping in, saying hello, and spending some time with me this evening. It was an absolute pleasure and a treat to have you.
Yeah. Thanks so much once again for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. And if you could hang around just a little bit after after I officially go off the air,
Mhm.
just for some post stream stuff. But yes, I am going to go ahead and say farewell to that as well, and pass off your react. There we go. All right. Well, with that being said, just as some heads up of things that I'm working on over the course of this next week. Like if you guys follow me on Twitter, you will see I have 3 more. One, two, three. Yeah, 3 more art. I had to think about that. 3 more Orimeda collabs coming up. I have one coming this Saturday, the 16th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, much like I did with Mint, with Helmchan, who has been on my channel before a couple of times. So it's gonna be nice having them back on at the news desk with me. On Monday, I have a new friend coming in who has never been on the MNN before, so we're gonna do another unique design. And just as a little bit of a teaser and a just kind of a get you guys hyped for that one specifically. The guest I have on that one, Ascardus, was the designer of Musha Beetle, who is one of the fan designs that was made into an official model that not only was introduced into Medarot S, but also actually made a place in the Medarot Reloaded Psy manga. So they definitely know a thing or two with creating some unique designs, and especially with getting one that actually was made into an official one. So really excited to have Ascardus and Helm-chan. And then a little farther down the line, the week after that, on the 25th of June, at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Not 7, but 3 o'clock, so a few hours earlier, I'll be having my dear buddy Ruben on to do an Orimeda stream with him. So you guys can follow me on Twitter for all of those reminders and updates on when those go live and when I announce any more. So definitely feel free to follow me on Twitter as well for those updates. And do be sure that you follow Mint in the comment description below for a link to their page to go follow them and see what they have set up on their channel. But with all that being said, as always, I do appreciate you all for stopping in, just as you always do. And until next time, or until Saturday, rather, this is your host, Kuura Isagami of the Medarot News Network, signing out.